Hey, welcome, Mick
Hey,
Holly.
welcome. There you are, our second show. Hey, Mick.
Yep. Part two. Part two. We survived. The network didn't cancel the show, so we're back.
I think our ratings are still about as bad as they were for the first show. So hopefully we can make that go a little bit better. But yeah, you know, yeah, I'm very excited about this. I think we,
Yeah,
you know
we've
what,
got.
Nick? Here's the thing. People have responded reasonably favorably. So let's keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, we had some really good emails. We had a couple of little comments. We're getting better every week. Last week there was a few comments that with your rich accent, Andre, they couldn't quite understand you, and we recognised that your microphone had become disconnected, and your very echoey laptop was coming into the rescue. So we fixed that problem. Now we're still working on Andre's lighting. He still looks as though he's in a bit of a bat cave. But
Mick, you worried about the lighting. I'm worried about the bullet holes in the background. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to fix those. So I'm not sure which one's more important, the bullet holes or the lighting. But
that was the kneecap brigade, which we're going to talk about later, right?
The kneecap, we'll get to that later.
Mafia.
We will get to that later, definitely. So what are we doing today, Nick?
That's a good point. We should have prepared, don't you think?
I agree with you, definitely.
Well, just to comment. Look, I know a lot of you are going to be watching this on the replay and can't add comments during the show. But if you've got questions or topics that you want us to cover, let us know by email or send us something on LinkedIn. We're trying to design this show for you, your engagement and your benefit. So your feedback is, absolutely critical. For those of you alive, welcome. And the only way that we know you're here, I see a number of people. It tells me the number of people that are on, but I can't see, actually who is viewing the live show right now. So if you want to say something in the comments, let us know you're here. We'll give you a little shout out. So yes, Andre. In fact, we did do some preparation for the show, and we've got a couple of topics that were precipitated by the fact that, look, we recognize there's been a cosmic shift in everything. And we're not going to be talking about COVID, but it has impacted our industry, and it's caused a fundamental shift where everybody needs to change at the same time. And when that kind of colossal upheaval goes on, there's some sensible things that happen and some crazy things that happen. And we're going to talk about two subjects today. The first one, we recognize that most people have had they've consumed their backlog, so probably 20% down on backlogs, and people are very worried about 2021, Andre, about making their numbers and then sustaining their numbers going forward. So we're going to talk a little bit on our first topic about how we optimize our go-to-market teams to improve our backlog. And then secondly, Andre, we're going to talk about another shift. Can you headline that one for us?
Well, yeah, we're going to talk. I mean, as you mentioned, the craziness and really one of the things that we've seen this, Mick, in the 2008, 9, 10 years. When times of uncertainty hit. I mean, I'm sure this happens in other industries, but this is the one we sort of know a little bit about. Is that during those times, people do crazy things, you know what I mean? And we want to call this the bad competitor. We really want to sort of bring this to the forefront. We want to take this out of the closet, because a lot of people talk about it, in their own boardrooms and their own thing, but we don't talk about this sort of as an industry. So we're going to hit it full on, and hopefully we don't get too much hate mail around it, but I think this is a very important topic, and really the goal around this is to ultimately reduce the amount of, let's call it, craziness, and we want to try and protect the value that this industry brings to the total construction environment.
Fantastic. And we've got a few comments already. I'm excited about that. StarNet Worldwide. Whoa, fantastic. Thank you for joining. JEC. I'm not clever enough to work out exactly who that is, but welcome, JEC. And Susan Hoblit is joining us all the way from Tucson. I hope her weather's very nice over there. So let's get into it. And let's talk a little bit about this, this backlog has shrunk, and it's caused a lot of owners to think, well, okay, how do I go out? Hey, Jay Crump, thanks for joining us, Jay. Good man. How do we optimize? How do we go to market? How do we find new business? And in this time of uncertainty, also, we see a lot of mobility of salespeople. We've seen a lot of salespeople, trying to find the best place to practice their craft a little bit. And so I think a lot of owners are thinking, now might be the time to go out and recruit a rainmaker. And I love that phrase, the rainmakers. Here's my perspective on rainmaking. Rainmakers are people who have grafted their skill and their art over at least a decade to be able to confidently create the cadence of revenue generation. They've got great vendor relationships. They've got great customer relationships. They're embedded, they're known, they have authority, and they have credibility. And here's the thing about rainmakers: when they're making rain, they're not going to move over to the desert, right? They're not going to come join your company if they're making a lot of money where they are. And if they're not making a lot of money where they are, then perhaps they're not really a rainmaker. So I know there is an allure of, hiring a top talented salesperson. And I think you should, if you find the right person, do that. But we have to consider, what environment are we dropping that person into? Or indeed, what environment do you have for your current salespeople, and how do they, go after that work? Andre, one of the things, and you might want to comment on this, that I've seen is that working a lot with commercial flooring salespeople, they have done a great job of building very, very long-term relationships. And I know you do a lot of portfolio analysis, and we see that salespeople, maybe 75 to 80% of their portfolio comes from 2 or 3 customers that deliver that work on an ongoing basis, right?
Yeah, no, I think so, Mick. So, I think here's the issue. The issue is, you think about it from a management perspective. The manager looks at the backlog, and at the end of the day, there's a hole in the backlog. Isn't that right? Okay.
Yep.
So, the key thing for me, first of all, is that what we don't see, as prevalent as what we'd like to see, is where's the hole? If that hole is in the next 90 days, okay, guys, we do have a problem, right? And if the hole is a little bit further out in the backlog, that's a slightly different problem. So one of the first things that I'd like to recommend in terms of, understanding the hole is know where that hole is in your backlog, right? And that is, I know it sounds crazy, but so far, we've seen with many customers, they don't really know where their hole is. All right. That sounds a little bit crazy, but okay.
No,
so,
Andre, I think you hit on the nail on the head there, because it requires 2 types of sales behaviors, or even 2 end markets that you're going to go after. Because if you know that your sales cycle with a GC is 6 to 9 months, and you've got a hole coming up next quarter, that isn't going to solve the problem. You've got to be starting to look at some quick turn work. So therefore, you want to put together a program, an initiative, motivate your salespeople to start identifying some quick turn work or some specific end user work where the sales cycle turns in 3 months or less.
Right. So number one, know where the gap is. You know what I mean? And secondly, Mick, I also don't see, instead of just panicking about it and trying to take everything that comes, take a decision. Really, take a decision. Am I going to just lose money this next quarter and, prepare my business for the next 3 quarters? or for the next 2 quarters, or whatever the case may be. So, get some conviction around this. Get an understanding around, okay, and sometimes that loss is part of the investment. Now, that loss impacts, companies that don't have, a good storage system. So if their equity inside their balance sheet is low, their ability to sustain losses is problematic. And one of the things that we always try and re-emphasize with companies, build up your storage system, build up that equity. It's an incredibly valuable environment to be in when you don't have to do stupid things because you're going to have a short-term problem. And so rather drive it, as opposed to driving uncertainty and having knee-jerk reactions towards uncertainty. Prepare for the fact is you're going to have a degree of uncertainty always. Uncertainty is one thing is certain, is that uncertainty will happen. The problem is we just never know when. Okay.
You sound like Yogi Berra there. The only certain thing is uncertainty will happen. That's a Yogi Berra type quote right there.
Okay, well there you are. I mean,
and Andre, just a pointer there. You mentioned some points around building up your coffers to actually have sufficient equity to weather these ups and downs. We've got a commercial flooring benchmark report that we generated. You can find it go to our website, flooringbythenumbers.com, click benchmark, and you can download your free copy. And it'll give you some parameters around, debt to revenue, debt to equity, just so that you can calibrate where you are as a business. But absolutely a fundamental point to have that in place.
Right. So, and maybe, from an industry viewpoint, that we are starting to understand that our balance sheet is important. It is absolutely critical. And the way that we manage our balance sheet in order to be prepared for the fact that uncertainty is going to hit us. Because here's the thing, what happens is if we make the wrong decisions in the short term, it can significantly impact our business in the longer term. And then what we're doing is we're taking the short-term degree of uncertainty and significantly destroying value for our business, out in the future. So, that's, I'd like to see a little more decisiveness. Okay, guys, how much money are we going to lose? Is this okay? Or what is the plan? What is the strategic plan around this?
So you said the magic words, which I wanted to touch on, which is strategic plan. So in this context of, how do we replenish the backlog and where do we go and fish, for work? The most important thing I think that you can do to enable your business to be successful is to have a sales plan. So, I sit down with many, commercial flooring salespeople, sales teams, sales managers, owners, and most salespeople, they have a number. They say, well, this is kind of what I did last year. Well, last year was a bit of an anomaly, and they come up with a number. A number is not a plan. So, where are you going to, what customers are you going out to? Now, I had a real example of this yesterday, where a salesperson, had this account for many years. I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. It had been his hallmark. He'd made his living on this account, and all of a sudden, that a competitor came in with a lower price and stole that. And in part, one of the issues was there was a lack of robustness in the relationships with that client. So the salesperson had a very direct relationship, which had served well for a decade or more. But other people within the dealership, weren't talking to the head of pre-construction. They weren't talking to the CEO of that small business, and so their market intelligence was not robust enough to know the normal give and take of, well, could you come down a little bit on your price, was more significant, and they got to a point of no return where they weren't able to come back and think about value engineering or think about alternatives. Now, if I take a step back in the organization, what the root cause of that is that we didn't really have a strategic plan around that account. Right? We'd had the account for 20 years. It always delivered a nice amount. So nobody thought about it. But you can't be thinking that way anymore, because people are going to be taking that. So you have to have a plan around your existing accounts. So it's always easier to get work from existing customers or past customers. That's where you go first before casting your net out into the wild blue yonder and trying to win work in ponds that you've never fished in before. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But the detail around the sales plan, please do one thing. Get your salespeople to write a plan, and then you, as leaders in the organization, review the plan, and then see, okay, how can I support this plan? Who would you like me to make a call to? If this company's been with us for 10 years, don't you think you as the owner should be touching base now and again? Not taking away from the salesperson's relationship, but just reinforcing the fact that you're committed to their success. Really, really important for you to.
Well, Mick, here's part of the issue. Okay, and I mean, you really are good with these salespeople, and I think they really like the way that you approach it. But to me, the first thing is, we're talking about a backlog deficit now. We should be knowing about this, 6-8 months ago. You know what I mean? So the first thing is, when it comes to planning, how do we really address the true early warning signs? And once again, that comes back into the pipeline. So the one thing that I can promise you that's happening right now, there's still plenty of activity with existing companies with existing opportunities inside your existing pipeline. And and people just do not want to go and really put that effort into the pipeline. It's still, I hope whatever I put into my pond, I hope it's still going to work, because it's always worked that way. Right. No, and that's not the case. So there's two ways of dealing with this. The one way is passive, and the other one is active. And we can't be passive when it comes to times of uncertainty. Yeah, maybe we can be a little bit passive when it comes to, there's plenty for everybody. When there is not plenty for everybody, it's called damn active. Get involved. Get involved in that pipeline of yours. Truly get to understand.
And the thing with salespeople, I know I'm, I've practiced many years, as a salesman in IBM and other companies, and sales is my passion. But we like the thrill of the chase, right? The detail around, the contract and all of that stuff. We're a little bit blasé about that, and we all have to do a good job around that. But salespeople are like this, squirrel. And there's stuff in the pipeline, and then, whoa, there's another opportunity out there. And you keep throwing bid after bid, which costs money, into the pipeline. And there's plenty of opportunities. All of you watching on this call, I guarantee you there are opportunities in your pipeline that if you double down on the activity, you would make a significant impact on your close rate. We see it.
And yeah, I mean, just, Mick, absolutely. Just get involved. First of all, before you even worry about the damn close rate, get to know what is your known rate. Get familiar with your known rate. What is the stuff that we know about? There is, once you age that pipeline, there is a time frame. There's no doubt about it. Somewhere between north of 90 days and 180 days, you should have knowledge about that stuff in your pipeline. And
so I know you talk about this subject a lot. You're very passionate about it. Known rate. What exactly do you mean by known rate?
Okay, so either it's won or it's lost. That's your known rate. Okay. you know, and if your known rate, I mean, pretty much that's, you know, that's the proportion of either a decision is made on it, right? Either won or lost, based on the existing opportunities that are still in your pipeline. It gives you a guide. It gives you a guide of how engaged you are inside your pipeline. And you know, the thing that I see so often inside the management of, you know, of companies that we look at is that everybody believes the engagement in their pipeline, that's something the salespeople do. We don't get involved in it. We don't want to know about it. You know, and so that's the first thing. The second thing is, guys, you know, how many of us actually go in there and say, listen here, there are certain things we must win. You know why? Because it is directly in alignment with the way we understand the type of work. It's in our lane. This is our pond. This is the stuff that we got to protect. And you know, even in times of uncertainty, you know, people just start saying, they start panicking. Hey, just bid whatever you can, you know, and there is no, you know, there is no clarity around, okay, we've got a whole bunch of stuff sitting on our plate. It's just a matter of, you know, putting in some effort.
And
you know,
Andre,
so instead of going,
yeah, when we look at these numbers, what does, so we're just tracking known rate. I'm just trying to bring this to life for our audience here. If the known rate is low, what would that tell you?
Right. I mean, if you've got a low known rate, you've got I mean, you're falling asleep, specifically in a certain category of your pipeline. So if your known rate specifically of, you know, that somewhere between 90 and 180 days, if that known rate is low, trust me, you're not engaged in your pipeline. You know,
so we know it signals to us to ask the question, are your salespeople following up? Because often the only time the salesperson, you know, gets to know is when they call up and, you know, they place the order. They don't get to know when they lose because the salesman isn't chasing it and he doesn't know that he's lost it. Now, if you then start focusing on trying to get that known rate up, what it does is it motivates the salespeople to follow up and at least ask the question, hey, has this bid been awarded or not? And sometimes the prospect will say, well, no. And then the salesman can ask, well, are we in the running? Are we going to get it? And they might give you some intel that you can act on that can change that outcome. The fact that you engaged and asked the question changes your ability to win the deal. So it's a good little test to see whether your salespeople are really because your pipeline is your greatest asset, isn't it, Andre? You've invested dollars and dollars in that.
Right. And then, you know, so then I can, you know, seem that we're a little bit controversial. I mean, maybe, yeah. Anyway, then the next problem is that there are actually some, I mean, companies that have experienced a growth in their pipeline in the middle of this mayhem, in the middle of this thing. So, you know, and then people tell me, oh, well, I've got a hole in my bloody pipeline. I've got a hole in my backlog. You know, not acceptable. It's not, it's because we as business managers, as owners, are not doing the right thing by our business. That's why we got a hole. So, okay, so now, you know, it's possibly at a point where it's too late. And even here's the thing, Mick, I've even seen this behavior, even now, when, you know, when supposedly revenue or sold work or written work is you know, scarce, even now we're still not doing the right thing. The basics, I mean, these are just basic things, you know, and we're going to come into, and then what this drives is the craziness, right?
Yeah.
Because
so let's finish up on that. I think, you know, a couple of things to focus on. Number one, you know, your existing talent, your existing go-to-market teams, your salespeople are more than capable of helping you replenish that backlog. But we've got to give them some encouragement and some support. Go and look at your pipeline and make sure that you know what's happening, you know what the outcomes are, as Andre said, those must-win deals, don't be complacent. Don't think that you're going to get them automatically. Really ensure that you're doing all of the right things to go at that. Get your salespeople to write a plan on where they're going to focus. And if you've got a short-term hole, I want your salespeople to be really clear and articulate about what end user segment they're going to go after, who they're going to call on, what associations they need to be part of to be networking in that segment, and drive it. If it's fourth quarter looks like it's going to be slow, I'm looking for some, larger, jobs that may schedule in that period. Who are the GCs that we're going to target? What's our attack plan? Who do we know in the GC? Who do we need to know? Get on LinkedIn, find out who the executives are, and mark these people and start having a conversation. That's how you're going to build a robust pipeline.
Mick, just also the one issue about this, and I know you're trying to summarize, and I know you're trying to make the show a little more professional, and I go and screw it up all the time.
The two of us, it's never going to happen, Andre.
I get that, but here's the thing. I just want to spend just 2 minutes talking about the must-wins. What does must-win mean? Must-win means that we understand exactly all the requirements that we need to do to win, right? So that we know, how often have we seen we lose a job and we didn't even know who the owner representative is, and the owner representative happens to have a favorite a floor install person that is not us, even though we've got a great relationship with the customer. And we didn't even know who the owner represented. So, what are the things? And you cannot do more. You cannot do enough work around that. Know who the people are that are going to influence your ability to win. And hey, if your price is too high, take some stuff out. Like Curtis Banton says, I never go down. I always go up. I love that attitude. I just love that attitude. Because that's what good competitors do. If you want to have a less price, well, let's say, okay, well, we're not gonna worry about certain things. Is that okay with you, Mr. Customer? And there is an art to driving a must win. But you know what? We're too busy doing rubbish. So therefore, we then go back and sit down and say, oh, my pipeline's back. I've got a backlog problem. So I think the issue around this is there is real things that we can do today. This is positive. We can make it good. And this leads directly into the next, talking about being prepared, the next area of our discussion here. And that is, we want to take away this craziness. We want to eliminate craziness.
Okay, just at that point. So Andre, we finished out there on our first point. I don't know if we've got any comments or questions that you want to pose for us there before we go into. We're talking about crazy bidding next. So let's have a look.
Okay. All right. Well, while people are thinking about not thinking, then
all right, let's get into crazy bidding, right? This is, we see this all the time when business is scarce, people stop panicking and they bid everything, and they think the way to win is just crazy low margin. Just paint the picture for us there, Andre, because this is something that needs to be stamped out, because it's a lose-lose for everybody.
There's no doubt. So first of all, lose. But just to get a little bit of context around this, Mick, we are absolutely in the belief system that good competitors is great for the industry, right? If any industry, for that matter, but specifically our industry, if this industry is surrounded by really true good competitors, it raises the bar for everybody. So that is, that's the starting point. Now, the problem is when you get to a situation where you have bad competitors, and we're gonna let's bring this out in the open, and we're gonna talk about how do we actually eliminate. Well, I suppose that you'll never do that, but really reduce the impact of bad competitors, right? And so first of all, let's just think about a little bit about the why. Why does this happen? And then we'll sort of between the why and what happens, I think is very important. Why this happens is primarily around panic. We're on the bid board. We see this new shiny squirrel, and we try and go for it, right? With no context, very little education around what we're going for, because it's different. It is different. Now let's explain how this can be different, right? So first of all, you look at a company A who fishes in a very specific pond. They know, they do a lot of schoolwork. They know how that system works. It's familiar territory for them. They understand the dynamics, and they know how to make money there. And suddenly, this competitor, right, who knows schools, sees a hospital opportunity, and they go and take the same principles that they know about schools, and they're going to do it for a hospital that they may win because of some stupid number that they're putting on. They may win it. When do you think that hospital actually goes? When does the install date happen?
Maybe 9 months, 12 months, a long time.
It could be. It's sometime, in the future, in the fairly thing. When that future happens, conditions may have changed quite significantly. That's point number one. And then the problem is they have already been in a position where that decision's been made, and they've got to live with it. Now, I'll tell you what, a guy that's really good at schools will get slaughtered doing a hospital. Absolutely slaughtered. Guaranteed they will lose a hell of a lot of money doing that job. For sure. The principles, the processes, the way that things get done on in that other pond versus your known pond is very, very different. It just is. The investment required is different. Everything is different, and you will be slaughtered. However, what damage have you done in the meantime? The existing competitors who normally, the dust settles around a group of good competitors, right? They know what's required to do a certain type of work. They know the investment. They understand the investment. They understand the types of margins that they need in order to deliver a profit on that type of work. And then all of a sudden, they've got to go and defend a territory when there was no reason for it to be defended, because this happened out of ignorance. And what we're trying to do is eliminate the ignorance, right?
So Andre, I have an analogy.
You got an allergy?
No, I've got an analogy. So when we talked about this yesterday, you inspired me to. I like slides, right? So I got a couple of slides, just add a little bit of entertainment. So we're talking about fishing in different ponds, and it's a different way of saying what you just said, but I'm not as clever as you, so I use a fishing analogy. So here's an example of this little boy, right? And he ends up fishing in his local pond for 15 years. He knows exactly where to fish. Right, there's not much fish in this pond, but he knows there's a little shady spot under the tree that if he drops a worm around there about 4 o'clock, he'll get a fish or two. Right, and he's able to do that. And that might be a salesman who's working with a customer. He gets a small fish or two every now and again. He doesn't overfish the waters, and it's successful. But nobody else knows it. Nobody else goes there because it's not it's not on the public bid boards, right? So that's kind of where he fishes. And then you've got the residential, the residential sales guy, right? It's like tickling trout, right? You see, think about the homeowner. They need a lot of love and attention and stroking and tickling to get them out of the water. They're very skittish, right? And they'll escape. But now and again, you get a big fat trout with nice margins, right? And then this, residential guy or the small guy decides, hey, look, on the bid board, there's all this wicked tuna, all these massive fish, all this big opportunity. And as you say, Andre, they go out there and shit, now I need a boat. Man, it's dangerous. I need safety gear. I don't know how to handle all of this. And it's a nightmare. And this picture here makes me laugh the one on the bottom right. They caught a fish so big that it nearly sinks the boat. And that's what you just talked about, Andre, is that they get these deals that sink their company. They can't make any money. It's a lose-lose. So the message that Andre said, and I'm saying is, know your pond, fish in your pond, throw more hooks into your pond. You know how to put the bait on, you know how to fish, you know how to do it. So don't take risks. And these crazy bidders who suddenly think that they can go from, small work to doing complex, multi-team, high project, multi-finish jobs, they're just going to die, and then they create a bad name for everybody. They lose money, may even go out of business, and it's damaged your business. And the competitive market takes years to recover, Andre.
Well, it does, and I always try and use this analogy. When you talk about ponds and things that you really know well and how you do. When you talk about it, people always look on, the other side of the fence, and the grass on the other side of the fence always looks greener, doesn't it? And Mick, tell me something. Now, guys, this is very important. If there's one thing that you're going to get out of this, it's what I'm going to tell you. Okay. So why is the grass on the other side of the fence more greener? Do you know, Mick?
I do, because you told me earlier. Do you want me to tell everybody?
Well, guys, I'm going to tell you why the grass on the other side of the fence is more greener. Because there's more shit there. That's why it's greener. Guaranteed. Absolutely, for sure. And I know it's human nature. I do it. We all do it. We get into things that we don't know. And really, guys, please be a great competitor in your space and grow that space before you start looking at the other side of the damn fence, because it ain't greener. It's just different. So please, and I'd really love, Mick, I'd really love us to try and we talked about bringing, how can we help? Well, I'd like to invite, the industry leaders, the various associations and the various bodies that are involved, talk about this openly. Let's reduce the the potential for craziness and stupidity, basically, because
I do think one response is education, because a lot of people don't really think, they just react. And so as an industry, educating people on what does it take and what sensible practices and what good margins are is very, very critical. But I know you got some ideas, some penal ideas as to how we regulate the industry, right?
Right. So, we sat around this and we said, okay, well, obviously we want to try and deliver some strategic direction around, how can we prevent craziness from happening, and how can we prevent this destruction of value? Okay. And, through a lot of brainstorming, we came up with, I think, really three very critical solutions, right? Okay, and there's a new concept that we want to bring on the show, Mick, and that's called the authority poll. Like, we got to put certain things before we can bring them to the show. We have to put them up the authority poll and then get an okay and see if it's acceptable.
We got to ask the producers if we're politically correct and whether that will pass muster. Yeah.
Right. So, how politically correct I am. And so the first idea we had is we want to create this knee-breaking community. So anybody who does any craziness or stupidity in terms of bidding, well, they're going to get introduced to, a bunch of knee breakers. And we put that up the authority poll, and I hadn't got a response yet until basically now, and I want to read the response. And the response says, yeah, we think this is a great idea, but we're going to put this through the legal counsel for validation. So that idea on its own is maybe not the greatest idea, but I really think that's really what's required. So the second idea is, what I think we need to do, Mick, is go into a practice of pure price collusion. So get everybody together. So we're going to get everybody together, and we're going to go into pure price collusion. And I put that up the authority poll, and they said, "Well, look, hang on now. Well, that may be problematic." Now, here's the third.
So we're 0 for 2 already. Okay.
Right. So far, our workshop has turned out to be a complete bust. Okay. However, we came up eventually. You know what I mean? It's like you keep working at it and working at it, and eventually you come up with the aha, right? And here's our aha. Okay. Nobody is preventing us from establishing a compulsory margin for this industry. So, I mean, how do we create? So we need an acronym for this. Like it's the floor. It's the very bottom that you are absolutely allowed to bid on in this industry. The absolute floor. Okay. Now the problem is, for when it comes to acronyms and you're trying to work with an acronym and it's the flooring industry with a floor, the acronym becomes a little bit complex, doesn't it? So, but think about it. It's the absolute floor. So if I had to challenge you or the audience, all the hundreds of thousands of people that are busy listening to this right now, and I had to challenge you and I had to say to you, okay, you guys tell me what's that floor is. Percentage. I want a percentage. And here's the calculation. The calculation, very simplistic. It is the worst price that you get from your vendor. The absolute worst price is your materials, your labor, and any other related costs. So if you're out of town, your hotels, but any other direct costs. So the margin that you want to get on top of those direct costs.
So Andre, when you say worst labor, what do you mean?
I mean the highest price. So in other words,
okay.
Yeah, right. So in other words, if you've got a good vendor relationship, you don't give away that. You get that as a benefit. So if you get a better price because of your investment in your vendor relationship, you get that. That's part of what you get in addition to your very lowest price. So what is the margin?
What you're looking for is what should be the lowest gross margin we should have on a job, right?
Any job. Doesn't matter. The lowest on any job. Just because otherwise it's too difficult.
Do we have any takers in the audience? What do we think the low margin should be?
All right. Well, I think you see, guys, this is the thing. Let's put all this out in the open. I mean, because we all know it, and it's just and there's a bit of caginess in terms of whether we should discuss it or not, and what's trade secrets or not. It's all out in the open. So I'm saying, to me, here's the rule: nobody bids anything less than 25%. Think about it. Nobody bids anything less than 25%. Now I know we're going to get hate mail and whatever mail. I really don't care at this point. But here's the thing: if the reality is, if we want to get a perpetual healthy industry, first of all, 25% is the low. It is very low, and I'm saying that's just our starting point. As you know, we try to take that and we're going to raise the bar. No doubt about it. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the industry talking about, we don't get out of bed unless it's 25%. I mean, first of all, how pathetic is that? That we got to say we don't get out of bed for 25 unless it's 25%. First of all, that's pathetic on its own. But it's real. Today it's real. So let's start off with that. Okay, let's start off with something, and let's put a stake in the ground and let everybody debate it. and let everybody think about it, and let everybody,
we've got averages. I mean, look, we know this is a privately held industry in the main, and we've worked with over 60, 70 companies. We've compiled a benchmark report, and you can see margins in there, and you've got your own internal mechanisms on that, and what that ultimately translates to, the margins that we put in, on average, the industry is only getting 4%, operating profit, which, it needs to be much higher for us to have a healthy industry. And we can't get there unless we have good gross margins. So this is not being unreasonable. This is being, business sensible.
It has to be, Mick. It has to be, because I mean, we are in a great industry, and we've got to fight for who we are and what we are and the value that this industry brings, because I mean, we've seen this now. This industry brings a lot of value, and if it didn't, the barriers to entry would be zero. And I tell you what, the barriers to entry are significant in this industry. It takes a lot of investment. And, what we're noticing, the one thing, and we said this the last time, the difference between really a good operator and a not such a good operator is one of the similar things is investment. And we've got to get to a place where the industry is comfortable to reinvest. And it's not. At the moment, it's not. I promise you that a good portion of the industry would like to take their bag of money and go and sit in Florida or wherever. I mean, it's just because there isn't we're not driving this. It's not something that people feel safe to invest in. You've got these enormous customers that have incredible power, and then you've got these enormous vendors that have incredible power. We're going to talk about that in another show, but so somebody's got to be able to say, how the hell do we invest? Because at 4 to 5%, there's nothing there to invest. So. I think we're going into, the backlog's down, but I think we're going into such an exciting phase of where this industry is going to. So that's our rule. Okay. And so everybody that's on this call, I am absolutely convinced you're going to subscribe to the, in blood. It's one of those in blood signatures, right? Okay. I mean, you saw that in the old days, how they used to do this. They cut their hands, right? And they shake.
All right. Fantastic. Well, look, that's that. We're getting to the end of the show now. We tried a new format this week. It's only week 2. We tried to create a couple of segments. So the first segment was on, how you optimize your go-to-market sales teams to start to replenish your backlog. And the second part was getting a little bit more conversational about how do we discuss crazy bidding, and how do we not do that, and what sensible margins might look like. And next week we're going to experiment with another format. We're going to have a guest next week. Now, Andre, there've been at least a dozen people who've said they want to be guests on the show. So we're going to have a committee meeting to decide who goes first, because this is a big moment. So next week,
I agree. I mean, people are breaking the door down at the moment. So
that's right. They want to know what's in that bottle of wine behind you. They want some of that. So there will be a bottle of wine for the guest that comes on. If you like the show, please give us some comments and guidance about topics you'd like to see, what we could do better. Please forward the link, the replay.
Oh no! Not what we could do better, Mick. That's going to be that's going to be a book. We know.
And don't forget to go to the website flooringbythenumbers.com and get your benchmark report, because we're going to refer to that quite a bit on these calls. And we've enjoyed ourselves today. I hope you did.
All right, I did. Okay, mate. So I think we good. I mean, do we have like a like when the show and when the show ends, there's like a music and bubbles come up and I don't know, balloons or something. I mean, is there something like that?
We're working on that. I got one for the start. I don't have one for the end. I've got to work on an end. I've got to work on an end outro. Yeah.
Oh,
So right now it's just goodbye from me.
And goodbye from Andre. Have a great one, guys. Fix that
week.
damn backlog. Cheers.